Right. Hello, everyone. Despite all the technical challenges, we'll find of you to our global learning session for today for the specific course English for job applications. Now, our session today will focus on what you should do to get hired and specifically looking at how you can prepare yourself before and during the interview. And what makes this topic relevant to you? You may be in the dean's list, or you may be a top scorer, or but getting hired requires a different set of skills, right? So your whatever academic background you come from, you don't have to worry as long as you prepare yourself for the workplace. Now, recognizing the increasing competitive job market and the ever-changing workplace landscape, employers are emphasizing the importance of certain soft skills which are indispensable in the 21st century. So in order to future-proof yourselves and become employable, for the next couple of minutes, all of you need to prick up your ears and seeking journey. Allow me to introduce our speaker. He's an expert in talent, learning, and engagement. He's a trainer with many years of experience. He leads the growth initiatives in Malaysia for LinkedIn. So as a specialist in talent and strategy solutions, talent and learning solutions, he assists the organization in their talent sourcing strategy, providing learning and engagement solutions to develop their people and accelerate organizational growth. Here to give you some tips on how to get hired, please welcome Mr. Suraj Velayudham.
Thank you so much, Ms. Suchi, for the introduction. Really appreciate it. I think you saved my time when introducing myself as well. Very good to be here today. So I'll be speaking a lot more about LinkedIn as a platform. As you all know, LinkedIn is a social media platform. It's a professional network, right? It's very similar to Facebook in that sense, but the difference here is Facebook is very related to your personal life, whereas LinkedIn is more focused into your professional life. So we'll be talking about coming up with a LinkedIn profile, what's important, some of the best practices, and why it's important, right? And without further ado, I'll just share my screen. I have a few things to share. Just 1 second. All right. Are you able to see my screen?
Not yet. Oh, yeah, it is loading. Yeah. Correct.
Okay. Is it good?
Yes, clear.
Okay, awesome. Right, very excited to welcome you to what we call Rock Your Profile. It's basically a program that we run here at LinkedIn to help educate members, customers, nonprofits, students, everybody, right, on how to build a profile. And that tells you a professional story and how do you connect to an opportunity on LinkedIn. As Ms. Suji already explained, my name is Suraj, and what I do is really to assist companies improve their overall people strategy. So when we talk about people, hiring is one pillar. We have employer branding, employee engagement, and last but not least is on upskilling. So I speak to a lot of HR managers, hiring managers on a day-to-day basis. So I'm going to relate everything I share today to what employers are looking for. So this could be very beneficial to all of you who are entering the workforce. And so before we dive in, let me give you a better idea, right, of how we'll be using our time today and what you can expect from this session. So first off, we'll take a look at our agenda. We'll talk about LinkedIn, what LinkedIn is, get to know a little bit more about LinkedIn, what our culture is, our value proposition, and why LinkedIn as a platform. Next, we'll talk about your profile, going through some of the items on what's important to build a complete profile that really showcases your story as a professional, right? After that, we'll talk about things that's beyond LinkedIn profile, some of the extras that you can actually incorporate when building your story. And then we'll save some time for Q&A before we wrap up. All right. So kicking off by introducing what LinkedIn is, it's a short video, and I really hope there's no technical issues when playing this video. But before that, right, let me just talk a little bit about LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is all about you, your professional, your community, helping you really connect to an opportunity, right? We don't get anywhere alone. It takes a community of people to help us be successful. So we went out and talked to real members about how they use their professional community on LinkedIn to reach their definition of success in their careers, right? After all, success is when you do what you do lines up with who you are. All right. So moving on, is this video. I'm going to click play. Ms. Suchi, just let me know if the video is not playing, yeah?
I will.
All right. Sorry. Okay. So as you can see, all of us are professionals regardless of your identity, your socioeconomic backgrounds, your personality, what you do, your passion. At the end of the day, we're all professionals in our own right. And now we talk about LinkedIn, right? The core of what we do and how we connect with professionals on our network. So we define our vision as our true north, right? It's our dream as a company. It's what drives us every day at LinkedIn. Ours is to create an economic opportunity for every member of the global workforce. And our vision is followed by our mission. And our mission is, we define it as our overarching objective. It's something that's realizable, something that's measurable, and ideally inspirational. Ours is to connect the world's professionals to make them more productive and successful. That really is the core of what we do, right? As a social media platform, the job is to connect people with each other. And over here, it's really to help professionals be more productive and successful. So now that you have a better idea of LinkedIn as a company, we'll talk a little bit more about our network, right? So how does LinkedIn actually create value for you? The answer to that question can actually be summed up by our value proposition. Our value proposition is actually to connect an opportunity in whatever way that means to you. Whether it is to get a job, to build your professional identity, to learn a skill, to consume professional content, it really can be anything, right? Anything that means, whatever means to you, it's basically to connect you to that. So while LinkedIn isn't the end-all, be-all solution, we can be the stepping stone to connect you to an opportunity, right? So we talk about how you can leverage the power of LinkedIn, and there's some data points to show you, right? Let me just pull this all up first. Right. So LinkedIn has some powerful data, tools, and insights that can really help you connect to an opportunity. And this starts with our professional community, where we have over 810 million members in over 200 countries and territories, right? On top of that, we have about 58 million companies that have a page on LinkedIn, millions of open jobs listed on LinkedIn, more than 38 skills featured on the platform, and more than 120,000 universities. And beyond that, it's actually 443 billion feed updates. These are all post sharings, any updates that you do on your platform. On average, over a calendar year, it's about 440 billion. All right. So there's a lot of things going on the platform, and these are all data points that can help us influence what we do and how we help our members connect with any opportunity. Right. So now that you have a better idea of the power of LinkedIn and you've gotten a better feeling for the company and what we do, let's shift gears a little bit and shine the spotlight back on you. As up-and-coming professionals, well, you already are a professional, so up-and-coming people who are entering the workforce, you really need to have a profile where you talk about the story, right? And your story, your LinkedIn profile is really a digital portfolio that represents you and tells your professional story. Think of it less as a resume. I know a lot of people would say that your LinkedIn profile is your digital CV, your digital resume. We hear that a lot nowadays, but it really isn't, right? It's more of just a portfolio, more of a dynamic digital portfolio that's engaging, that's visual, and it highlights your experience and your skills to help you build your professional presence. So for those of you who already have a LinkedIn profile, you might have noticed that LinkedIn actually gives you medals as when you're completing and creating your profile, bronze, silver, gold, right, for the completeness of your profile. To elaborate more on the metrics used to award you with these medals, can get a little bit theoretical and boring here, but just want to explain what goes on beyond, right, at the back end of what we do. So when you get a bronze medal, it's basically when your profile has a photo, it has an education history or the position in a certain company, and the industry if you're not a student. Moving on is when you get a silver medal, it's basically having a bronze plus 5 additional skills that you've listed on your profile and a standard location that's tagged to your profile. Right. Moving on is the gold medal. It's basically everything that I've mentioned plus a summary of yourself, a full company update, or even a full education if you're a student. So what does all of this mean and why are they important, right? Because there's one metric that we call internally in LinkedIn, we call it a quality member. It's one of LinkedIn's top metrics as it drives member value and it powers LinkedIn's marketplaces. So if you're familiar with Facebook, you know Facebook has marketplaces, but it's all about how individuals are selling their own products. LinkedIn's marketplace is a bit different, right? Our marketplace is made up of advertisements, content, traffic drivers, job postings, right? Everything that relates back to what companies needs to pay LinkedIn as a business to help them reach their target audience. And their target audience would be people like yourself if we're talking about jobs, right? So a quality member, that's the top metrics that we use to help the LinkedIn marketplace and also the recommendation systems. So if you've used LinkedIn, you might have seen job recommendations being pushed to you and all of that. So that's what I mean by recommendations. It's one example of it. So there's 3 things that really powers the systems, and that's what we call the quality member. It's basically members who satisfy 3 criteria, right? The first one is to be reachable. As long as you can be contacted, whether it's via email, mobile number, or even the chat function on LinkedIn, you are reachable, right? The next thing is if you are identifiable. So if you can be identified by LinkedIn and its overall members, then that you fit that criteria already. The last one is to be connected, right? There is a minimum network on LinkedIn that you need to have to ensure that you're visible to the network, and it's 30. Right? Just fun fact, there is no minimum connections to have in any given profile. It's just for you to be reachable and identifiable, you should have a minimum of 30 connections. A maximum number of connections a person can have is actually 30,000. So yes, really, it's quite a wide range, but the more connected you are with people, the more visible you are to everyone else, right? That's really what that happens on the platform. So to become a quality member, you need to have a quality profile, right? Once your profile meets all of these criteria that I just explained, you now have a quality profile. So, right, getting to an all-star profile is not difficult. In fact, when you're creating a profile, there is steps it's like a completion meter that shows you how much you've completed to reach that all-star profile. So it's very easy. Just follow the steps. And once you've met all of this, then you start getting more value from LinkedIn. Why? It's because then that's when our ecosystem starts providing you more timely and relevant recommendations, whether it's contacts, whether it's jobs, or even content, right? So that's what you want. You want to see what's on the platform and you want people to also see you. But having said that, let's not worry too much about making a perfect profile. That isn't a perfect profile. We can always start small. If you're a student, if you're just starting your career, or even if you're seeking a new opportunity, simple updates on your LinkedIn profile can take you very far. All right. So we'll kick off this section by giving you some best practice recommendations to really strengthen key parts of your LinkedIn profile and why that's important. Okay. First off is, of course, to start with a photo. Make sure that you select a LinkedIn profile photo that truly represents you. It doesn't have to be perfect. All it has to do is just to tell your professional community who you are, right? It can be a professional headshot. It is good if it's a professional headshot. But does that mean you need to go and get it in a studio? No, right? I'm sure all of you have the latest smartphones on the market today. And most smartphones today can take a very good professional headshot. But even if you don't have one, is that a problem, right? It doesn't really have to be a professional headshot. As long as you take your own photo, just make sure that your photo is high resolution, it has good lighting, and it just features you, right? Don't have a picture with your girlfriends, your boyfriends, your dogs, your cats. In the end of the day, your profile talks about who you are as a person, as an individual, right? So it should be just yourself. In fact, if you find it a trouble to edit your photos to make it more presentable, so to speak, right? We also have photo filters that's available. Just go onto your profile, just click the pencil that says to edit. And once you click edit your photo, we actually have preset filters that can help you polish up all your photos. So it's very straightforward, very easy to use. So don't worry too much about getting a studio quality photo. All right. So after adding a photo, the next most important thing to do is to update and add your name pronunciation. Is this very important? I personally don't think it is. It's really up to you. So it's very easy to actually have a name pronunciation. We recently introduced this feature where you can actually record your name, and anyone who goes to your LinkedIn profile will be able to hear how your name is pronounced. This is important, I guess, if it's important to you. If you don't like when people mispronounce your name, you have that option to do so, right? My name is a little bit complicated. People usually butcher it, but it doesn't really bother me, so I don't do that. I did not do that on my own profile. But if it does bother you, if you have a very long name that's very difficult to pronounce for most people, perhaps then that could be something that you can do, right? Just ensure that you speak slowly and clearly, keep it less than 10 seconds, make sure there's limited background noise, and holding your phone not too far from your mouth, right? And this can only be done on your mobile, by the way. It can't be done on your LinkedIn webpage, okay? Moving on is something new that we've also introduced. It's the ability to add pronouns. LinkedIn is very big on diversity and inclusion. So we've recently introduced this feature where you can actually display your pronouns, right? To help you showcase your true self on LinkedIn. So the reason we've done this is also because our research shows that pronouns are actually core to our identity and how we want to be seen and let others know how to refer to you, right? In fact, we made a study and 70% of job seekers believe that it's important that recruiters and hiring managers know their gender pronouns. 72% of hiring managers agree and believe that it shows respect. So don't be too afraid of putting this on your profile. In fact, it's very commonly accepted today. In fact, even encouraged. So if that is important to you, go ahead and do that. It's very easy. It's an optional field at the top of your profile, and you can just put in whichever pronouns that resonates with you, right? And moving on is the more important thing, which is the cover story. You actually have the ability to put in a video, a short 30-second video that introduces you and tells your story. It could be an elevator pitch for a lot of people, but just to share on some of the formats that we'd recommend here. First off, always introduce yourself, say your name and a bit about the work that you do or the major that you have as a student. You can always add more color by talking about your passions or your expertise. If you have a very cool final year project, you can always talk about it, right? But always consider ending it with a light call to action. A call to action is something that informs the audience on what to do next, right? So it could be as simple as feel free to message me if you'd like to chat or share your feedback with me via whichever method, right? So it's just really a 30-second video that can help your audience understand a little bit more about yourself in your own voice, okay? The same way you would pronounce your name on the mobile, these things is also being able to record on your mobile. It's only available on your mobile, actually. So all you have to do is just pull up your profile on LinkedIn Mobile, tap your profile photo, and tap View or Edit Profile Video. That's where you can show your personality, be conversational, and show excitement, right? This is important whether you're looking for a new job, sharing your expertise, or even growing your following. A cover story always helps you introduce yourself to your professional community, and it helps you be noticed, right? So that's one feature that you can use. Just want to run through all of this before we actually talk about some more important stuff. But yeah, moving on is something that is more relevant to people who are already working, may not be very relevant to students. It's the ability to add your industry. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about why it's important. If you've worked in the past, maybe for an internship, for example, you do have a working experience, and that's likely related to an industry as well. So adding your industry is important, right? It's because that's how people will find you and add you into their professional network. In fact, adding your industry can in fact give you 9 times more profile views. And you will see this a lot when I'm sharing further slides, right? Like you'll see X amount more of profile views and whatnot. But it doesn't just mean like, okay, if you do this, you have more views. But I want you to understand why you have more views. And the reason here is very simple. It's because I'll take my experiences, with speaking to a lot of hiring managers. The reason why typically you get more views when you put all of this information in is because employers use this function to find candidates or find people. That's how people find people, right? For example, let's say you're in a very niche industry, maybe the cryptocurrency industry, or maybe the financial technology industry, renewables and renewable energy industry. All of these are very, very niche industries. Typically, it's very difficult to get a candidate or a talent for these particular industries, right? So employers will need to then search and find who are the right ones. And the way they find that is to find relevant industry experience. And that's why it relates back to more views in your own profile, okay? So in fact, members with industry information are discovered up to 38 times more in searches. You have 9 times more profile views as a member, but in terms of number of searches, it's 38 times more. So it's something to keep in mind. If you have a work experience, ensure that you've already updated that. If you haven't, you can always do so. It's very easy. Just click the pencil at the top of your profile where your headshot is and where your name is. Just scroll down all the way to the bottom and you can edit or add your industry. All right. So moving on to what's more relevant to all of you students here today is, I'm sure all of you are going to enter the workforce very soon. It's basically for you to be open to new opportunities, right? And this next feature is really all for you. Those of you who already have a LinkedIn profile, or if you're rather active on LinkedIn, you may have come across LinkedIn profiles that has a green banner around their profile picture, right? It says hashtag open to work. Oh, sometimes it's a purple banner saying hashtag hiring. Something that's more relevant is the open to work function. It's basically LinkedIn's feature that allows you to set your job preferences for you to look for a new opportunity, right? To add this is very simple. Just go to your profile, click on open to. There's a button that says open to, and you can select finding a new job. I think my screen shows you the guide. And once you've done that, you'll have the ability to specify the job title that you're searching for, pinpoint the locations you're interested in, and even select the job type. When I say job type, it's either full-time, part-time, is it hybrid, on-site, remote working. All of these functions and features are there for you to help find the best job for you. All right. In fact, you can also get very specific about your start date so that your community knows how quickly you want to land your next opportunity. And when you do this, there's 2 ways to share it with your community, right? You'll see an option to share it with all LinkedIn members. And that means you will automatically have the green banner saying hashtag open to work. The other option is to share with recruiters only. When you choose this, you won't have the green banner, but it will privately share your account to recruiters in a private setting so that not everybody knows. The reason this feature is there is because not everybody, for example, if you're already working in a company and you're looking for your next opportunity, perhaps you don't want your colleagues or your current employer to know that you're looking out for a job, right? It's very sensitive information. And that's why we have that feature to not be so public about it. But hey, if you're students and you want everybody to know, I would highly recommend that you choose the first option so that it's more visible. And I think I'll just relate this back to my own experience, right? When I speak to HR people, hiring managers, and so on, more often than not, all of them are looking for candidates who are able to start immediately. And for a lot of roles, it's very difficult to find the right candidate. More often than not, they find a lot of irrelevant applicants coming for the job. And that lengthens the entire hiring cycle for the HR department. And that's always a bad thing. Time is money, right? The more time you spend, the more money it costs. So employers would typically first choose active candidates before they choose we call passive candidates. So I think on that note as well, let me just share what active candidates and passive candidates are. Active candidates are people who are actively applying for jobs. These could be fresh graduates, entry-level positions, maybe people who are unhappy with their current job, unemployed, really people who are actively applying, right? Passive candidates are people who already have a job. They may not necessarily be actively applying, but if opportunity arises, then they may be interested. So employers always look for active candidates first because it's easier for them to close their job. All right. So yeah, I think that's a little bit more about what you can do to ensure that you're more visible as a future candidate or prospectual candidate on LinkedIn. Okay. But yeah, I know it can be tough finding for a new job, but know that your LinkedIn community is always there to help. All of these features is for you, is to help you. And in fact, we've seen companies being able to close positions much faster, all because they have access to active candidates. And if you guys are all active candidates, then, I think I would highly recommend to do that, because then you have a better chance to land a position with the company. All right. Moving on, we'll talk about the summary. There is a summary section on your profile. This is where, under your About section, is where you'll be able to add the summary, right? Think of this as your elevator pitch. It should include an introduction and also highlight certain accomplishments or aspirations that you have. I would say the recommendation here, the best practice would be to keep it short and sweet. You don't need to list all your accomplishments. You do have another section for that, but this is what is going to appear first, right? So whatever your elevator pitch is, that's where you want to highlight it. So you can also highlight your unique talents, or even how you want to contribute to the world, to the community, to the company. And a best practice would be to have at least 40 words or more, because it's more likely to turn up in a future employer search, and that's data validated. All right. So
Mr.
moving
Suraj,
on. Yes.
can I interrupt you now? Just so that when we will not forget that the students can ask you questions, because
Mr. Chu, I think I lost you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now I can.
Okay. When we teach this course, job applications, we always tell our students, like in your resume,
Yes.
for all the students who are listening in, we say that the key to your resume is your career statement or objective, which appears at the top, right?
Mhm.
So
Yes.
a summary could be something like the career objective, right? It's like where you want to go and where you are now. Am I right?
Yes, correct. Thank you so
Okay.
much for the question,
All right.
Mr. Chi.
Okay.
In fact, in case I did not mention, the floor is open. I would like this to be engaging. Any questions students have, please just unmute yourself and drop me a question. But yeah, Mr. Chi, to answer your question, yes, it can be the same, but I wouldn't recommend it to be too long. Like sometimes your executive summary in that case can be quite long. And people don't often spend that much time reading the entire thing. I would say keep it short. I would say 40 to about 150 words would be the ideal range. But yes, it's basically where you are now, what you want to be, your aspirations, basically. Right? Does that answer your question, Mr. Chi?
I think all of you, when you say that, they can relate to it, because like if it's a summary, they might end up saying things that that's not important, right? So
Right.
to the point, right? And yeah, so take note, everyone. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
No worries, no worries. Keep it short and sweet is what the entire message is like when you're talking about the summary. All right. But yeah, in the interest of time as well, I know we have about 15 minutes. So just moving on to a few other important areas. There is also the ability for you to add a featured content. Now, if you've come across LinkedIn profiles, typically when you scroll through their profile, you'll see certain things showing up like articles, documents, certain images and whatnot. That's because that individual has enabled it to be featured, right? Featured is basically what you want to be showcasing on your profile when someone looks at it, okay? Why is this important? It's because it tells a more compelling story about yourself, right? Besides your own, credentials and all of that, it also shows your interests. Maybe you have a certain business acumen that employers can sort of relate to, and that's what people usually look for, right? So it doesn't have to be very business professional focused. In fact, it can be anything that you're passionate about. It's basically the ability to pin these articles in your own posts that it's either you've written yourself or even you've shared from other people's content. I like to use the term using rich media. Rich media is basically defined as a photo, a video, or presentation, basically anything that is visually enhancing to the audience. Okay? Why that's important? It's because it enhances that profile, right? It makes it more dynamic. And keep in mind, it doesn't have to be content of your own. In fact, if you have a article that you saw that was pretty interesting about anything that you are, passionate about, just sharing that will also do. It just shows you a little bit more color as a personality, as a future professional. Okay, moving on is the ability to add work experience. May not be very relevant to the audience today, but if you have an internship experience that you want to put it there, that's a great way to showcase whatever you've done in your past. All right. Keep it short. I would refrain from using bullet points. I would write it as a summary, like maybe a 50-word, just to summarize what you've done. You can use a couple of bullet points here and there, but the majority should read like a story, right? Like a professional story. So, for example, if you've worked at a startup for internship experience, or even a smaller company that's not very well known, always give a brief introduction about the company before detailing your experience. That's always good because it gives context. And lastly, it's always good to talk about what you've done in your role. It's even better to showcase the impact that you've had, the results you've delivered, and the change you've created. A lot of students may think that, oh, it was just an internship, I was just kerja kuli or something. But sometimes you can always talk about what your takeaway was. What did you learn? Sorry. 1 second. Are you seeing this error message is showing up on the screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Don't worry, sort that out. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So coming back. So even if it's an internship, you can talk about what your takeaway was. If you've learned something, that's where you put it in, right? Because employees don't expect that much from fresh graduates because honestly, you haven't worked. So you don't have that much transferable experience in the first place. But what they want to see is your attitude, right? What you've learned that you think could be transferable. And that's in the end of the day what employees care about when they're hiring fresh graduates. So even if it's an internship, go ahead and talk about your experience. All right. Moving on is something that we've recently introduced. It's the ability to add a career break. I think this could be more beneficial for the master's students. I don't know if there's any of you here, but if you have a career break, right? Maybe you stopped your career for a while, you went and take your master's. Even if it's not a master's, any career break that you've done, you go ahead and put it in, right? A lot of people are shy. They think that it's a bad perception to employers. In fact, it's not. 62% of people globally, 64% of women globally have taken a career break in their lives, right? In fact, half of hiring managers say that career breaks are becoming more and more common. As long as there's context to why you did a career break, it's always good to talk about it, all right? But I'm going to move on. Something that's more relevant to the audience here today would also be something that we've recently introduced. It's the ability to basically a creator mode. For all of you folks who your TikTok creators, do a lot of TikTok videos and whatnot, you can transfer that skill over at LinkedIn. We've introduced this feature. It's the ability to actually just showcase any of your content to the larger audience. It's a great way to establish thought leadership or even grow your following, right? Because it helps you highlight your content within your profile and build a following. It also helps you engage with your audience around the content that you're basically creating, all right? Not going to spend too much time here. You can actually go to your own LinkedIn profile and that's basically a creator mode that you can turn on. And then it's a step-by-step guide from there on, all right? But something that's more important, right, is the ability to add volunteer experience. Now, this feature is also new on LinkedIn. Why volunteer experience is important is because it's a great way to round out your professional identity and it uniquely tells your story, right? Just make sure you add your volunteer experience and give a quick 1 to 2 sentence description of what you do for that specific organization, right? In fact, fun fact, almost half of hiring managers say that they view volunteer experience as equivalent to formal work experience. It's really an important part of a professional identity. So go ahead and talk about it, right? If you volunteer at a shelter, if you go to an orphanage, or if you've helped out with any volunteer experience, just talk about it. But if your question is, do I need to do a volunteer experience so that my profile stands out? No, you don't. The last thing we want is for you to force yourself to go and do a volunteer experience just for the clout, So no, you don't have to do that. It's just if you do, there's a function and there's a feature for you to talk about it. And if you do, it's always good to talk about it. All right. The next thing on the line here is what's more important as anyone entering the workforce. In fact, not just anyone entering the workforce, any professionals out there who are already working, is the ability for you to add your skills and to showcase what you're great at. Why this is important, I'll get to that shortly. But adding at least 5 or more skills on your profile actually gets you up to 17 times more profile views. Again, remember what I said when I talk about profile views, always think about why there's more profile views, right? The reason for this is because professionals search key skills across LinkedIn. It's another great way for you to be found on your network. I'll give you an example. I take a real life example here, just like the conversation I had with the client recently. So it's a tech company that needs to find tech talent, computer science graduates who maybe have skill sets in a certain programming language. Why it's so difficult for them to find a candidate is because they're looking at job titles. And today, job titles don't mean much, to be very honest with you. I take an example of the digital marketing position. A digital marketing exec can be a digital marketing exec. It can be a digital marketing consultant, specialist. It can be a social media campaign strategist, social media specialist. The list goes on. So if you're purely looking at job titles, you're not going to get an accurate representation of the talent pool. So what employers are now doing is instead of looking for job titles, they're looking for skill sets. So we take digital marketing as an example. One of the skill sets would be search engine optimization or Google Analytics, right? All of these are skills, languages, softwares, platforms that you need to be well versed in. And that's the skill that you want to showcase on your platform, on your profile. So this can apply to any given role, whether it's digital marketing, computer science, really depending on your own major. There's a lot of skills that you naturally would have built across the years. So that's what you want to talk about, because today, that's what matters. Employees are actually looking at your skills, not your job titles, all right? And always remember that you're in full control of your skills. You choose what order they get displayed in your profile and who endorses you for what. You can control these things, right? You also control what skills get featured on your profile and which ones don't. People don't spend time, really scrutinizing your profile. They often glance through it because, again, time, right? They need to find 20 candidates in the next 6 months. I don't have time to really scrutinize your profile. I need to just glance through it, and I need to capture what's important to me. So that's where the whole feature function comes in. What you think is important as a candidate, as a future, what an employer would look for, and that's what you want to feature. All right. So now that we know skills are a quick way to showcase what you're good at, we shift gears a little bit and talk about the next thing, which is recommendations, right? So recommendations are a great way for you to build your professional credibility. If you don't already have them, you can always request a recommendation from anybody. It can be if you worked before, a colleague. In fact, you can even ask your lecturers, your professors, your dean, even better. It can be anyone with a professional capacity, all right? But always keep in mind, a couple of things to keep in mind when you're requesting a recommendation. Always customize it, right? Make sure that you let the person know what you want to be recommended for specifically. Is it a project that you've led, an initiative that you've done in the university? It can be really anything, right? Something that you want to be showcasing. And when you make the request, especially when you're asking, your professors, your dean and whatnot, sometimes it helps you to write a first draft to send it out to them, right? So think of it as you're writing a recommendation for yourself, basically what you want to be known for, and you're sending this draft to that person recommending you. Why this could be good is because not only does it help that person save a lot of time, because trust me, right, it takes time for you to think and write something as a recommendation. A lot of people will come to me and ask for a recommendation, but I find myself taking 20 minutes of my time just to think about what to write. So if you've given me that draft, it helps me. Of course, I can edit it and put it in my own language or in my own, but it really helps you save time. And I think the win-win situation is for yourself, you get to say what you want to be known for. So that's always a good thing, right? So last but not least is to choose people you've worked with closely, someone who can provide specific examples on your strengths, your skills, and even your experience, all right? And it's always good because people look at what third-party people are saying about you, right? It gives you that sense of credibility. So moving on, I think I did not touch about location, education, and these things, but do not forget about them. Is because it's very important that you add and update your location first, because this helps you discover opportunities and connections in your area. In fact, just an example would be, let's say an employer, a company in, say, Penang, and you're from Penang, right? But you've just come here for your studies, but you're going to go back to your hometown and you ideally want to look for a job in Penang. If you don't update your profile to reflect that location, employers don't know where you are. In fact, employers in Penang would not want to hire candidates in KL because it's just very difficult, right? You have to arrange a lot of accommodation. There's just a lot of things that comes into the picture that makes things a lot more difficult. It's a lot easier for employers to hire candidates who are already in their location. So as a candidate, if you fit that criteria, if you're already in their location, the chances of you being reached out to is a lot more. Okay. The next thing is, of course, your education is very important, especially to all of you guys here. You're entering the workforce as fresh graduates. Your identity as a professional is what you're majoring in, your education, right? So again, you can always choose where in your profile you want it to be displayed. It's all customizable. You can feature it on top. But why is it important, right? I will take an example of certain industries. Let's say a financial technology company that has a lot of financial analysis to be done. Ideally, they would want to hire fresh graduates and then train them so that they can absorb them. But what they want to look for is people who have some sort of knowledge about it, perhaps an actuarial science graduate. That could be someone that they're looking for. Or maybe people in the capital markets industry. They need someone with economics, bachelor's in science and economics, because it's the same language that you guys speak. So a lot of companies who rather hire fresh graduates and then grow them in their own company, they would look for relevant degrees that can sort of be transferable in that role. So that's why it's pretty important, right? It helps you be more noticeable to the right employers. So the other thing is, of course, you see publications and accomplishments. Publications, I would say, may not be so relevant unless you're a person who writes a lot of blogs, a lot of thought leadership articles. Then yes, always important for you to put that in your profile. But for example, accomplishments. If you're a Dean's List student, put that into your profile, right? Like every employer loves a Dean's List student. Nobody doesn't like a Dean's List student. So any achievements, accomplishments, if you've won an award for a final year project, for example, all of these things are very, very good to feature in the accomplishments section of your profile. All right. So now that we've talked about how to take your profile specifically to the next level, we talk about how you can leverage LinkedIn to build a strategic network. Okay. Right. Sorry, these are more for thought leaders. Okay. Yeah, coming back. So we talked about how you can build your connection and how you build a network on LinkedIn. First thing is to ensure that you're following people you're interested in. This could be companies, they could be influencers. Why it's good to follow them is because then you're connected to them, right? When you're connected to this company, then as soon as a job opportunity opens up, it's going to be pushed to you. You will see it coming up on your home feed. So that's where you'll be aware of any opportunities coming up. It's very simple to do this. All you have to do is just go to the company page, click follow, and then LinkedIn will automatically recommend you other similar companies that you can follow as well, right? So following a company helps you, like I mentioned, stay on top of any updates, any news, trends, job opportunities. It just really helps you overall, all right? Next thing is following influencers. So we do have industry influencers on LinkedIn, people like Tony Fernandez, Bill Gates, all of that. The reason you can follow them is to see what sort of content or updates that's coming up into the world, into the new economy. This is where you can find articles that resonates with you and then share it on your own profile and feature them, right? So that's how a lot of people behave on the platform, including myself, all right? So in addition to that, you can also leverage LinkedIn to find what you care about. So maybe certain initiatives like Go Green, for example, or anything that's related to your personality. You can always find them, follow them, and be updated. All right. So as a member of LinkedIn, we actually give you full control over your own LinkedIn feed. We want to empower you to sort of consume content that matters the most. And all you have to do is in your own LinkedIn feed, there's like 3 dots on top of your right of any post that you can click. And that's where you can manage all of these different preferences, right? Follow, unfollow people, companies, influencers. In fact, you can even hide a certain post that you find you don't like, or maybe it's too sensitive to you. You can always choose to hide them, right? So you have full control into what you want to see on LinkedIn. All right. That's coming to an end of my sharing today. I know I'm 1 minute over time, but I'm just going to save a couple of minutes, if time allows, to answer any questions from anybody at all.
So those people who have not set up your, or even if you've set up your LinkedIn profiles, like for my class, I've asked them to. So this is perfect opportunity for you to ask our speaker, the questions that I cannot answer. He's the professional, so you should ask him.
Yeah. I know there's a lot of information that was shared. I hope it wasn't information overload. I was trying to speed up to meet the time that we had.
We're going to convert this into a YouTube video for them to refer to as and when they need. So it will be made available for you.
Yes,
Right.
in fact, what I will do on my end is there's also a one-pager, sort of like a cheat sheet on what is important. Basically, everything that I've talked about today. It's a one-pager cheat sheet that I can share across. You can spread that across to everybody. Yeah. But yeah, any questions from anybody? Really, my time is yours.
Come, students, you all are because just to give you a little bit of background, most of the students are from the engineering field, and we also have students from. Can you all shout out which group you all are in so that we know which group you all are in from? We have engineering students, some more. The other groups, which faculty are you all from?
Language studies.
Language studies, Farah?
Yes.
Which LG24?
LG241.
241. Okay, good. All right, so perhaps you all want to ask Mr. Suraj. Don't be afraid.
Yeah, it's okay.
Just ask away. Any question is a good question, right?
Yes, there is no silly question.
Correct.
Yeah, not at all. In fact, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm asking in Malay.
Can, boleh.
Contoh macam kita dah ni kan, settle dengan kita punya LinkedIn profile apa semua tu. Lepas tu, kita pun dah ada follow up dengan ada company apa semua tu yang memang ada kena-mengena dengan LinkedIn. So macam mana lepas tu kita nak teruskan connection kita, maksudnya macam cara kita contact dengan company tu, adakah kita perlu still menggunakan email?
I see.
Ataupun direct guna LinkedIn tu.
Right, faham. Thank you so much for the question, Afiq. So I'll try and reply in Malay also. I haven't spoken Malay in a very long time, but yes, boleh je. You boleh follow dia punya company. You actually boleh cari dia punya employee juga. So when you search company dekat LinkedIn tu, you boleh tengok siapa yang kerja dekat that company semua. So for example, what is very helpful, if you boleh cari HR manager dekat company, let's say we take Kamuda for example, right? Kita cari company tu, kita cari HR manager dia, lepas tu kita connect dengan dia. So once you dah connect dengan dia, they become your connection. So once they dah connection you boleh hantar message dekat dia. So for everybody's sake here as well, right? If you're not connected with someone on LinkedIn, you cannot actually send them a message. You're not allowed to. Only if you dah jadi dia punya connection, baru you boleh send message. So to answer your question tadi, Afiq, kalau you nak guna email ke macam mana ke, kalau dia ada email dia, okay, you boleh choose email, you can directly email. Tapi ada je function you boleh message terus dekat LinkedIn platform tu. So one way to see this is if dia aktif, kan? Kalau that member tu, kalau dia aktif dekat LinkedIn, kalau dia tengok dia punya post paling latest dia 2 hari je. Oh, maybe semalam dia post something. Lepas tu you tengok sebelum tu, macam memang dia quite aktif lah. So then you know LinkedIn memang dia aktif. So boleh je you message dekat sana. So for those yang tak sangat aktif, kalau dapat dia punya email, kalau dia dah tulis email dia, boleh je directly email. But when you hantar email tu, you can always say, hi, I found your profile on LinkedIn. I'm who and who, what I do, and I'm interested to find out opportunity, anything you want lah. Right. I hope I answered your question, Afiq.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. Anyone else?
Anyone else? You can ask in Malay if you haven't, if you're not confident in asking in English, you can. So I guess, if
Yeah,
they
no worries. I think people are shy, no problem. No pressure to even ask questions.
if they have no questions now and they have questions in class,
Yeah.
perhaps, I can forward you the questions and perhaps.
Yeah, no problem. Any question, I'll just forward it to me and I'll answer it to my best
Okay.
ability.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, what I'll do after this, Ms. Uchi, is I promise I'll send you a one-pager. So this tip sheet is, we call it cheat sheet. So it's very informational because it's just one pager, summarizes everything and tells you what to do. I think that could be beneficial to your students. Yeah.
Okay. Also, the page on feature content, right?
Yeah.
That particular page, I was wondering whether they can feature. You see, many of our students do some kind of part-time job on the site, meaning they might be running a small startup company for all you know, right? So
Yeah.
in that page, that's where they really showcase that they have other skills besides engineering skills, right?
Definitely.
Yeah?
Definitely. I would highly encourage that, in fact. Even if it's something that's not related to
Correct.
your major.
Yeah. So for you girls who are engineering students completing, if you have a cookie business going during Raya, feature that. So that shows that you have entrepreneurial skills.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to feature. I get students asking me, this is not relevant. Everything that you do today can be translated to skills and that becomes relevant.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I think on that note, Ms. Uchi, I'll just elaborate a little bit more on how anything can be relevant, right? For example, let's say you have a cookie business, as you mentioned. When you run a cookie business, there's a lot that goes into it. Like, for example, when you have an Instagram or TikTok that showcases all of this content around your business, that's actually a skill set that employees are looking for because it's social media strategy, it's social media content creating. And people pay a lot of money to get this kind of candidates. So
digital skills, right?
Correct. Yeah. So yeah, anything. It can be anything. It's just how you word it. I mean, you can find a lot of samples, examples. But yeah.
Okay. So, all right. So I think, any more questions? One last call? No? Ms. Parimala, you have any questions to ask the speaker?
No.
Okay. All right.
All right. If that's the case, thank you everybody for allowing me to speak with all of you today. I hope it was insightful. I tried my best to make sure it's very relevant to the audience. But yes, I will be sending one pager to share with all of you. Yeah.
Okay, right. Before I close today's session, allow me to thank Mr. Suraj for taking time from his busy schedule to come and speak to you on how to set up a working and effective LinkedIn profile so that you get hired. Because if you ask me today, that's the way to go. If you want, the best jobs are there if you are in connection with the right people. So LinkedIn is, I think I look at it as a very relevant profile, no matter what background you're from. It keeps you connected, if not anything. Yeah. So
Correct.
with the industry, and so I think all of you, I'm sure you benefited, and I'd like to thank you very much again, Mr. Suraj, and they can come on board. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Ms. Uchi, and thank you everyone for having me.
Yeah.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. Thank you very much. Now, the rest of you, please complete the 2 Google Sheets that we send. One is attendance and the other one is feedback. And until we meet again, thank you very much.